The fog was so thick it felt alive. Every breath I took pulled in cold moisture that clung to my beard and seeped into my collar. I'd been lost for hours, maybe longer, wandering through the grey nothing, my compass spinning uselessly, my map as damp and limp as my resolve. Then came the sound, faint at first, like a whisper carried through wool. Running water. A stream meant direction, and direction meant hope. I adjusted my pack, tightened my grip on the walking stick, and began to follow it. The sound grew clearer, soft, trickling, like a promise of salvation. My throat was dry, my tongue rough from the stale air. I stumbled forward, every few minutes certain the water must be just ahead. Yet, each time I thought I'd found it, the sound faded, drifting deeper into the mist. I told myself it was the fog playing tricks, muffling and bending the echo. But it still felt wrong, too deliberate, almost beckoning. My boots sank into spongy moss. Branches materialized from the white void like the bones of the forest. The woods were silent, except for that elusive sound. No birds, no wind, just water that never seemed to be where it should. Once, I stopped completely, listening hard. It was closer now, I was sure of it. I could almost see the glint of movement ahead. I pushed on, breath steaming, heart hammering in my ears. Then silence. The sound vanished, leaving a hole in the air. I turned slowly, every direction the same. Fog, trees, and the steady pulse of my own heartbeat. My throat tightened. I called out. My voice swallowed before it could return. I took a step, then another, until I heard it again, behind me this time, farther away. I spun, squinting through the gloom, my pulse quickening. It was as if the stream were leading me somewhere, and I followed. I don't know why. Maybe instinct, maybe desperation, maybe because in the wilderness, the mind starts to believe what it needs to survive. The ground sloped downward, and I nearly slipped on wet leaves. I could hear it more clearly now, rushing, lively. Relief surged through me, and I half ran, half stumbled toward it. My foot caught a root, and I went down hard, palms scraping the cold earth. When I looked up, I saw shapes shifting in the fog, black tree trunks that seemed to breathe. The sound faded again, softer now, like laughter moving away. I sat there for a long time, unsure if I was chasing water or something else entirely. I pushed myself back to my feet, mud streaked across my palms, and listened. There it was again. The water, distant but steady. I couldn't let it slip away. Every instinct said, keep moving. My canteen was nearly empty, my bearings lost, and the woods pressed close like a living thing. The fog had thickened, to the point where even my breath felt muffled, as if the air itself refused to carry sound. I started forward again, slower this time, testing each step before I took it. The ground here was uneven, pocked with roots and stones, the kind of terrain that demanded attention. I began marking trees with the tip of my knife, thin white scars on their bark, a breadcrumb trail in case I had to backtrack. But after maybe 15 minutes, I realised I was crossing my own marks. My chest tightened. Either I'd turned myself around or the forest itself was playing tricks. I tried to steady my breathing, forcing logic into my thoughts. Stay calm. Sound refracts in fog. Just pick a direction and stick to it. Yet the sound of the running water shifted again. Faint now, then louder, then gone altogether. The ground started to dip sharply, and I followed the slope, telling myself that water always ran downhill. The scent of damp earth grew stronger, that deep, almost metallic tang of soaked soil. Somewhere ahead, I thought I saw movement, a darker patch within the fog. I took another cautious step, then another. The silence around me had become unbearable. When the sound of the stream returned, it was abrupt and startling, as if someone had turned a faucet on full blast. I broke into a run. Branches lashed my arms, thorns snagged my sleeves. The sound roared now, powerful and near. My heart lifted. I burst through a stand of spruce and found myself staring into nothing. The ground dropped off sharply into a misty void. I edged closer, toes sinking into the soft moss, and peered down. I could hear water churning below, but couldn't see it. A deep, unseen river, maybe, hidden under the fog. For the first time, fear crept in, quiet, persistent, like the chill that had worked its way into my bones. I knelt, picked up a stone, and tossed it into the white abyss. I expected to hear a splash. Instead, there was silence. Not even a thud, just the soft hiss of the fog moving past. I stood very still. The air felt wrong, heavier, charged somehow, as if I'd stepped into a place that wasn't meant to be found. Then the sound of running water came again, but from behind me. Closer, much closer. I froze, every hair on my neck prickling upright. The sound wasn't faint or distant anymore. It was right there, just beyond the wall of fog behind me. Not a gentle trickle now, but the rush of something larger, more forceful. I turned slowly, squinting through the milky haze. Shapes began to form. Trees, their trunks slick with moisture, branches bowing under the weight of the mist. Between them, a faint shimmer-like light playing off water. I took a cautious step forward, my boots squelching in the mud. The air grew colder, sharper. My breath came out in short clouds. I kept walking toward the shimmer, each step slower than the last. The sound of running water pulsed like a heartbeat, growing louder, clearer, drawing me in. I could almost feel it, vibrating in the ground beneath my feet. Then I saw movement, a ripple, maybe like the surface of a stream disturbed by a passing breeze. But when I blinked, it was gone. I called out, "Hello?" My voice cracked in the stillness. No echo. Just fog-swallowing sound, whole. I took another step and another until I could almost swear the air around me was damp from spray. I knelt, reaching forward with a trembling hand, expecting to feel the cold rush of a current. My fingers brushed only air. Dry air. I moved them side to side, searching, until I realised the sound had started to move again, circling me. Panic flickered, small but growing. I spun around, trying to locate it, but every direction sounded the same. The fog shifted like smoke, forming twisting trails that seemed to breathe. Somewhere deep inside the white curtain, I thought I saw something move, a darker shadow gliding between the trees. I blinked hard, told myself it was nothing more than a trick of light and exhaustion. Then, out of the grey, came a faint whisper of water, followed by something else. A low murmur that almost sounded like words. I stepped back instinctively, my heel catching on a root. I nearly fell, catching myself on a tree trunk slick with moss. My pulse thundered in my ears. "You're just tired," I muttered. "Just tired and lost." I decided to turn around to retrace my steps back up the slope. But when I looked for my marked trees, they were gone. Every trunk was smooth, untouched. I spun in a slow circle. The forest looked the same in every direction, identical shapes fading into white. Then, clear as day, the sound came again. Flowing water, bright and close, followed by the faintest splash, like footsteps stepping through a shallow stream. Not mine. I stood rooted to the spot, listening hard. The splashing continued, a few careful steps, then silence. I could almost imagine someone else moving through the fog, testing each step the same way I had, cautious but deliberate. "Hey!" I called, voice cracking with more hope than confidence. "Over here!" Nothing, just that oppressive, heavy quiet that settles in the woods when even the wind is holding its breath. I forced myself forward. Every sound of movement, mine or otherwise, seemed magnified. I could hear the fabric of my pack creak, the scrape of my boots, the dull thump of my heartbeat. Then the water again. Farther ahead now, always ahead. It was maddening, so real, so close, always slipping away when I drew near. The mist swirled around me, sometimes parting just enough to show the suggestion of a path before swallowing it again. I began to think of the stories I'd heard over years of camping and hiking, old logging trails that led nowhere, ghost streams that whispered to travellers, tricks of the mind born of hunger and fear. But this didn't feel like imagination. It was too persistent, too alive. I pressed on, driven by something between desperation and obsession. The sound grew stronger, roaring now as though I were approaching a waterfall. The slope beneath me steepened again. My footing grew uncertain, loose stones shifting under my boots. A fall here could mean a broken leg, or worse. But the sound called me onward, a steady, rushing promise of water and safety. I slid the last few feet on my hands and knees, heart pounding with exertion and dread. The ground levelled out suddenly, and I found myself standing in a small hollow, ringed by tall spruce. The fog pooled here like smoke in a bowl, and in the centre of it all, silence. Absolute and crushing. My breath came loud in the stillness, but I couldn't hear the water anymore. No rush, no trickle, only my own pulse hammering against my ribs. I turned slowly, scanning the fog. Something about the air felt wrong, denser somehow, like it pressed inward from all sides. Then, faintly, I saw movement near one of the trees. A shadow stepped forward, just an outline in the mist, no detail, no colour. For one dizzy moment I thought I was seeing my own reflection in some invisible surface. My stance, my pack, even the tilt of my head. But then it moved differently. One step closer as I stood frozen, and with that step, the sound of running water surged again, deafening, as if a flood had erupted all around me. The roar filled every space around me, drowning out breath and thought alike. It was so sudden, so complete, that I clapped my hands over my ears and stumbled backward. The ground trembled beneath me, not violently, but enough to make the trees quiver. The shadow before me didn't move. It just stood there, in the fog, half-formed, the mist flowing through it like water through reeds. For one heartbeat, I thought I saw a face, not cruel or kind, just watching. Then it was gone. The sound cut off mid-roar, leaving a vacuum of silence so deep I thought I'd gone deaf. I shouted, but even my own voice sounded distant, as if swallowed before it left my lips. The fog pressed tighter now. Grey turned to silver, then to white. I took one step, then another, reaching out blindly until my hand struck rough bark. A tree, then another. I turned, unsure which way I faced anymore. Everything was the same. Trees, mist, silence. I walked until my legs began to tremble. The world felt endless, folded in on itself. Once I thought I caught sight of the marks I'd carved earlier, but when I touched the bark it was smooth, damp, unbroken. My throat was dry, my tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth. The idea of water felt like a cruel joke now. Still, some stubborn spark in me refused to stop searching. I pushed on through the grey, following the faintest sense of downhill, hoping the sound might return one last time. When it did, it was different, softer, gentle, almost kind, a burble of real water, steady and clear. I didn't trust it, but I followed anyway. After what felt like hours, the fog began to thin. Trees gave way to open air, and a pale light filtered through. Then, suddenly, I saw it. A narrow stream winding between smooth stones, sunlight glinting off its surface. Real. Solid. I dropped to my knees and plunged my hands into it, feeling the cold bite of truth. I drank until I couldn't anymore. The taste sharp and sweet. When I looked up, the fog behind me had lifted. The woods were ordinary again, just trees, birds, and the gentle murmur of water. No shadow, no whisper, nothing but the quiet rhythm of the stream. I sat there for a long time, unsure if I'd imagined the rest. Maybe the mind plays tricks when it's scared. Maybe the forest does. Or maybe some things lead you astray just to guide you back. Either way, I've learned to listen differently to running water. Because sometimes, out there in the mist, it's not only the living that call you closer,